You're listening to Bad Dog Agility, bringing you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility. And now, here are your hosts, Sarah and Esteban.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 155. Today's podcast is brought to you by Elite Science. Unlock your dog's full potential with a unique competitive edge solution, 1TDC. 1-tetrateknol complex is a patented blend of unique fatty acid oils designed to safely and effectively keep joints and muscles at their best to maximize performance and shorten recovery time. 1TDC is the next generation of fatty acids and is used by many current and past national agility champions and world team members. All of our listeners will automatically qualify for a great 1TDC special offer by purchasing online at bda1tdc.com. That's BDA1TDC.com.
Today's podcast is also brought to you by Back on Track. Dog agility is a demanding sport and can be difficult on the body, both the dogs and the humans. Back on Track specializes in dog blankets, beds, and wraps that keep muscles warm and reduce the pain in joints. If you've got a nagging knee, calf, or ankle injury, Back on Track's human products can help get you back in the ring. Visit Back on Track at backontrackproducts.com.
Today we're going to talk about your agility goals and the negative feelings that you might have that are holding you back from setting those goals.
And we've actually done a great podcast, and I know it's great because I went back and listened to it just yesterday, but episode number 44 was about goal setting. I believe we call it Dog Agility Dreams and Goals. And in it, we distinguished the difference between having a dream and having a goal and really how to set good rules for proper goal setting. And it's a short podcast. I believe it's about 15 minutes long or so, and totally worth your time to go back and listen to it, even though we had actually done it a couple of years ago and we haven't really revisited the subject since. And today we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but this takes a very different angle on the subject.
That's right. I'm sure, we're relatively early in the year. It is March, but still relatively early in the year. And I'm sure a lot of people have been thinking about their goals for the year. And I actually kind of like that we're doing this podcast in March instead of January, because I feel like one of the traps of goals is that people get really excited at the beginning of the year and then they kind of fall off the wagon on their goals. But we want you to set goals that are going to stick and that are going to move you forward. So, not riding that New Year's wave, but really setting a goal for yourself. And there are some feelings that prevent us from setting goals and from reaping all the benefits that everybody talks about when you have a good goal and you're moving towards that goal. So the first feeling we're going to talk about is fear, and specifically a fear of failure. So a lot of people are afraid to set that goal, to set their sights on something big in their agility career because they're worried they're not going to be able to do it.
I think that happens a lot, not just in dog agility, and it's very important to talk about it because once you realize that almost everyone has this fear in many different aspects, parts of their lives, then you can kind of normalize that feeling. Once you understand you're not the only one who feels that way, it makes the problem a little bit smaller, a little bit more manageable, and something that you can attack.
I think the other thing about a fear of failure is to recognize that you can fail to meet a goal and still do amazing things and still move forward. So, for example, I knew somebody who was preparing for EO tryouts. That was their goal. They wanted to go to EO tryouts and they wanted to do well. And they were working on their skills and getting better and kind of getting more international skills. And then the handler was injured, like just a week or something before they were supposed to leave for EO tryouts. So that goal isn't being met. However, all the work that she put into her dog puts her ahead of the game for nationals. It puts her ahead of the game for the next year's EO tryouts. It's not like she loses the skills that she gained. She has those skills now for her dog's career. So you can not meet the goal, but the goal can still serve the purpose of moving you forward.
And her current dog isn't the only dog that's going to benefit from that. Any dog that she might run in agility in the future will also benefit from the increase in her knowledge, the increase in her skill set, and even her physical ability to execute certain maneuvers without thinking that she's going to be much better at because she strived for that goal. And as you said, even in falling a little bit short of that goal, she picked up all these numerous benefits.
That's right. So the other negative feeling that people feel is shame. And here I think that this comes from having failed before. Let's take it away from agility and say, how many of us have tried to lose 10 pounds, right? And how many of us have tried to lose 10 pounds over and over and over and over again? And so when we have failed in the past, we're less likely to set that goal for ourselves for the future. But the past doesn't mean that you can't do it now. This could be the time that you're able to put everything together and to meet the goal that you've put in front of you. And it's really hard to move forward and to move past a past failure when you're holding on to it. Right? So if you want to move forward, you've got to kind of let the past go when the past is negative and set yourself up for going forward. I think the other thing about shame is it's extremely easy to pick this up from other people. Meaning when other people have witnessed you fail in the past, there's even more of that sense of shame that you feel. So you have to have a little bit of a protection attitude of your own self, protect yourself from the attitudes of others and really just focus on yourself and your goals and not really worry about what other people might be saying about what you're trying to do.
It's very interesting because this concept of shame was something that I had to actually look at because I wasn't really sure what shame was. And when you think about fear, we talked about the fear of failure, that's something that can happen in isolation. You can be the only person on the planet and have a fear of failure. But shame is something that's tied to, humiliation, acute embarrassment over looking foolish, and you can only have that in the presence of other people. So it's definitely related to how other people are interacting with you in some way. And that's what Sarah's talking about here. So I think that that's very interesting because so much of agility happens in front of other people. You're at a trial, people can watch your runs. You go to a big event and now the stands are packed with people. You're on a televised final. Now millions of people in America are watching you run. And there can definitely be that strong sense of shame linked to failure or to meet your goals.
I think that this can really come into play too when you have handlers who are relatively inexperienced and maybe they're pretty far away from the goal. They don't have the skills right now. And yet they have a drive within themselves. They want to compete. They want to compete against the best. They want to be among the best, even though they're not there now. And so they set these goals and they move towards them. But that's where I think that we get a lot of outside influence where people look at somebody who's on their first dog and question why that person is trying to go to world team tryouts or trying to go to nationals. And you just have to recognize that everybody starts at the beginning. I mean, everybody starts with an inexperienced dog. So it's okay to have those big goals, I think, even with a young dog, because like you said, your next dog, you have a whole career in front of you. The last thing we wanted to talk about was uncertainty. And I like this one a lot because I recognize a lot of myself in this, which is that you don't want to set a goal that you don't know exactly how you're going to get there. But over planning leads to procrastination. You end up not setting the goal. Sometimes you end up not even starting to move towards the goal because you feel like you need to have every step laid out before you even begin. I think that to combat that uncertainty, you have to think about your goal and then think about the next 1 to 2 to 3 steps towards that goal. But you don't have to have the entire path laid out because as you take those steps, as you take that first step, that second step, that third step that you do know about, then the next steps become more and more clear as they become closer to you, right? To your immediate time frame that you're going to need to do them. So that's how I think you battle uncertainty.
That's a great point. Anytime you have a long goal, a long-term goal, For example, if I had given myself, and I think I did at the time, like 6 months to get Gitchy ready for a certain event, and knowing that we don't have XYZ skills, you can certainly plan in your head, okay, in the first 3 months, it's all going to be skill work. So at the end of 3 months, she's going to have these skills. And then the last 3 months before the big event is going to be mostly coursework, where we're incorporating these skills into actual courses. But now you're at month 3, and for a variety of reasons, it was the rainy season. You were sick a lot. Gitchy was hurt for a couple of weeks. Suddenly you're only good at one skill. You're still a little weak on the other two. And now you're off schedule. And so with goal setting, you often have revisions based on where you are, just like you were, talking about. And I think it's important to know that that's okay.
Right.
That that's going to happen. It's something you're going to run into, and over planning can definitely lead to procrastination, or even give you that sense of, I'm not where I wanted to be. And to have panic set in, even though you're 3 months out, you still got plenty of time to get done what you needed to get done.
Having every single element, even if you were able to get everything laid out in this perfect timeline, when you have it that structured, it actually makes it harder to pivot, to make a change.
Mm-hmm. And it can create those negative feelings within yourself.
That's right. There are 2 potential pitfalls that also should be avoided when you're setting goals. One of them is tunnel vision. So just being so focused on your goal that you kind of lose track of everything else in your life that's also important to you. So it might be making sure that you have time to work out, to get enough sleep at night, to spend time with your family. So, even as you're relentlessly pursuing your goals, you also kind of have to step back and take a look at your whole picture of you as a person in your life.
Mm-hmm. I think most of us are familiar with this concept in the setting of the workplace, where highly successful people in whatever endeavor they work in, they have higher than average rates of divorce, for example, issues with their children. And those are situations where you need to prioritize for yourself. What's important? Where does dog agility fall on that? And what you're willing to sacrifice for a given goal. I've always been one to be okay with very short-term, high-intensity type pursuits of goals, both academically, professionally, and even in dog agility. Like getting ready for certain events. I know that, for example, if I'm going to take the time to build an entire huge, big European-style course and run it a couple times, that's committing hours. Right. And so if you're going to set up a couple courses a week, you're committing a lot of time there. That time is coming away from somewhere else. And for me, it's time with my family, time with my other dogs, time playing basketball, time going out to eat, Friday nights, things and activities that are important to me and that I enjoy, but in the very short term that I'm willing to do that. Now, I would say that it wouldn't be a good idea if I did that 52 weeks out of the year. So I think, absolutely true. And that's why I like the idea of having seasons where, there's a kind of a prep phase, a competition phase, and then a recovery break phase. For me, that always takes place after the tryouts in May.
I think the other area where we see tunnel vision is not necessarily agility versus the rest of the world. There is that, and I definitely wanted to make that point, but also even within agility. So, for example, if you've set a goal to be at EO tryouts, for instance, with your young dog, and you are working through your contacts or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So it could be to make that EO goal, you come to a point where you have to decide between really teaching your contact behavior really rock solid and well, or band-aiding it so that you can go to tryouts. So the tunnel vision would say, my goal is tryouts, end of story. Taking a step back would say, my goal was tryouts, but my dog is only 3 years old, and I could break my contacts now and go to EO tryouts and maybe do okay and maybe not, or I could pass up on the goal that I'd set myself in order to lay a better foundation for my dog. So there's also that kind of tunnel vision, even within agility, of your goal versus maybe what's better for your career based on where you are right now.
Right. Sometimes we don't realize that you're making a trade-off in time that is going to hurt you, that you don't want to pay that price because you're trying so hard to stick to your goal. I think the nutshell 30-second version of that is when you're trying to get a Q or a double Q and you're willing to overlook certain behaviors that take place on a course, such as a broken start line, because you really want to try and get that double Q. So your tunnel vision is totally focused on the double Q there, not realizing the potential damage that you're creating by letting your dog come off the line. And then suddenly you have a dog who comes off the line 5 or 6 times in a row, costs you several legs. And now you've lost the opportunity to get several other double Qs because you can't keep your dog on the start line.
Right. Exactly. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I think in this case, my advice to people is to just be conscious of the trade-off. You may decide it's worth it. Right?
Yeah, the decision is ultimately yours.
The decision is yours.
Yeah.
And I can set up scenarios where I would definitely say it's worth it to break your start line a little bit and get that last double Q. You know you can get it back.
A classic one would be you in the finals of a big event somewhere.
Yeah, sure. Right. But you should
I'm not training for next year then.
That's right. But you should always know what trade-off you're making. You shouldn't make that blindly. And then the last pitfall is being too reckless with your goals. So, your goal should move you out of your comfort zone, but it shouldn't be delusional. Because you don't want to set yourself up into this cycle of setting a goal that you just can't possibly meet, and then you fail at it, and now you're in that whole failure cycle of not wanting to set the next goal. So, give yourself some chance of hitting your goal. We do believe that goals are very important to moving yourself forward in this great sport of dog agility. And we hope with this podcast, you've had a chance to identify and isolate and overcome some of the feelings that may be holding you back from setting those goals and getting all those benefits that we all know you get from having a good, solid goal.
Well said. Sarah's going to put a link to episode 44, that goal setting podcast as well, so you can find that. But it's episode 44 for those of you who are using the app.
And that's it for this week's podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Back on Track and Elite Science, and also NTI Global. In-stock inventory. NTI Global offers standard color and size tunnels that are ready to ship in 3 business days. Visit shop.ntiglobal.com for the widest selection of dog agility tunnels for both competition and backyard training. Known for free shipping, more options, high-quality products, and low prices, NTI Global has got you covered. Also offering tamer and anchor weight bags, along with a full line of accessories and agility storage solutions. Need your agility gear in a hurry? Order now. Get it now. New selections and stock levels are updated regularly. Use promo code NTISTOCK17 for 5% off today. Promo code good through March 31st, 2017.
What lights up a soccer stadium? A soccer match!